She is a tech veteran who began her career as a developer in high school, programming sites during the first .com boom. And now she is a partner at 500 startups running their Mountain View Accelerator. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Elizabeth Yin, partner at 500 startups.
Thank you. All right. How are you today? Everybody up there? Great. That was a very nice intro. Thank you. So I don't really want to go into my background too much, but just to give you some quick context, I was recently an entrepreneur for the last few years until about a few months ago. And then more recently this year, I joined 500 startups, where I'm now on the other side of the fence, investing in seed and accelerator companies. And what I've done over the past few months is done a lot of reflecting, actually. You know, when I was an entrepreneur, oftentimes things felt very hard and things were very lonely. And I thought, you know, maybe I was just the only one, the only loser who was struggling with these things. It seemed like every day you're reading TechCrunch, so-and-so got $5 million of funding, so-and-so like is nailing it out of the park or something like that. No one really talks about how hard it is to build a startup. So that's what we're going to do today. So one of the, I guess, benefits of being at 500 startups as an employee is, well, let me give you some context about 500. We invest in a lot of companies, so I get to talk with a lot of companies. In fact, our portfolio now has over 1,200 companies, all of different stages, but we invest at the seed stage. Of the 1,200, you can imagine that a large number of them, hundreds of startups, have gone through so many different difficulties. Everything from founder breakups, there are several in every batch that has this problem. Team morale issues, that's just about everyone. Unscrupulous investors, we've definitely seen that a lot. Some founders have unfortunately gotten cancer. Some have even gotten strokes, even if they are young. Many have become parents over the years, and handling the balance of becoming a parent with their startup is always tough too. We even had one founder get hit by a bus. Maybe there are more in our portfolio and I don't know about it. There are lots and lots of things that can go wrong with startups, and there are lots of challenges along the way, but nobody talks about it. So I asked our community, can you tell me about some of the problems that you've been having in building your startups that I could share with you all today, and how you've overcome them? And you can imagine the flood of emails that I received, all of these reasons, plus more, of why their startups have had problems, or why they've had problems. And today I'm going to share with you two stories. These two stories actually have some commonalities, and that's why I selected them. Although I would like to thank all the 500 founders who did send me their stories. Actually, many people have been through a lot of adversity. But these two stories, the commonalities include, well, one, they've been around for several years. So there's a lot of history. They've gone through a lot over the course of the period of time of the last few years. They've also achieved quite a bit of success. In fact, these two companies you may have read about quite a bit. They've gotten lots of funding. They've done really well from a traction and revenue perspective. They're amongst our highest flying companies in our portfolio, but yet they have had lots of problems. And so that's why I want to share with you that what you read in TechCrunch may not be the reality of what happens behind the scenes. So the first story that I want to share with you is about one of our portfolio companies called Love with Food. How many of you have heard of Love with Food? A handful of people. Okay. Love with Food, in essence, was a way that Ai Weong, the founder, wanted to help food brands get in front of new consumers. And so she has a subscription food box. Like, these are curated snacks of indie brands that you may not have heard of. This company has done phenomenally well. They started a few years ago. They've raised $2 million. They are in all the press. She's been on the Today Show with Jenna Bush. She's been in every publication you can imagine. She has donated nearly 700,000 meals as part of her company to charity. She has worked with a lot of famous chefs, actually, to curate their own special boxes. But it's been really, really hard. In fact, actually, the way she started this company was very difficult. She started this company because she was in the middle of a midlife crisis. Her marriage had ended. She had traveled around the globe by herself in search of something, not really sure what. Her best friend had cancer, and she was trying to figure out how to help her best friend by cooking for her. And that's when Love with Food was born. It was more out of self-therapy for herself. And Iwi actually has a technical background, so it was really easy for her to build her site and all that, and she got the operations up and running. I remember back in the 500 office when she was hand packaging all the boxes herself. And in those days, it seemed like, yeah, this one woman can take it on. And she was getting traction, people loved the snacks. What more could you ask for? But fundraising was actually very, very tough for her. She was a solo founder. And investors do not like solo founders. We have these rules. People said the food business is tough. Frankly, every business is tough. The subscription commerce business is tough. Every business is tough. One potential investor even told her that she was not going to invest in Iwi because she didn't have an Ivy League education. So, to which Iwi retorted, "Just watch me, bitch." It was hard. And so let me actually dive into a couple of tactical things that she did today. If you are a founder and you're really struggling, if you're struggling with fundraising, you feel down in the dumps, I would, one, pull your head up and keep going. For her, it was about just being relentless. It didn't matter what other people said. Sure, it was really hard, but Iwi's like a machine. She just keeps going, and she is a survivor. So these are actually a couple of tips that she's shared, both with me and everyone, on her blog. The way that she went about getting her fundraising done, which she did with after 75 investor meetings, by the way, she wore her company t-shirt everywhere. That was all she wore. And actually, that allowed investors to find her. She was at an event somewhat like this. Someone saw her t-shirt, was like, "Oh, Love with Food, I love it." He wrote her a check. She wouldn't have gotten that check otherwise. She was relentless on all the online channels, pimping out her angel list, etc. And she was flexible. She was willing to drive or fly anywhere to meet with an investor. And she followed up with people every week. I think that's a typo. And so she was just relentless. She even called the investors over and over. And one investor in particular who was actually, I don't think he's from America, and so he speaks both Chinese and English. She would call him and leave voice messages in English and Chinese every week, just to keep following up. And so I guarantee you that if you're not following up every week, if you're not wearing your company t-shirt, if you're not flying everywhere, if you are not being flexible about going places, then it's going to be hard to close your round. And this is what Iwi did. And it was hard. 75 meetings later, she had her seed round closed, and TechCrunch kind of looked like this. And this one page made it look so easy, but it was actually very, very difficult because nobody really wanted to invest in this business. And for all of the reasons I mentioned, investors have these rules that we think about. And so she just kept going and finally found people who would invest in it. The second story I want to share with you is actually even greater adversity in a different way. How many of you have heard of a company called Makuch? Nobody. Okay. Well, you guys are not their target demographic. So they actually are, they started out as a test prep company. They are changing how people learn. And this is primarily for people who are going to school. So I assume most people are not in that category if you're here. Bhavin started this company with his co-founder Hansu in 2008 when they were both MBAs at Berkeley. And it was a side project at the time. And at that time, Hansu, his co-founder, was the one who was actually really, really excited about this business. Bhavin wasn't. He thought he was going to go back to his corporate job at Deloitte. But Hansu convinced him that he should not go back after graduation to Deloitte, and he should work on this full-time with him. And they got into a lot of usual co-founder conflicts of like, oh, well, should this be a venture-backed business, a bootstrap business? Hansu was the one who said, we're making this big. Let's go raise a boatload of money. So there were a lot of sort of regular ups and downs of a startup. But then at some point, after about a year after that, actually Hansu, who was the real driver of this company, the visionary, the guy who really wanted to do this, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. Hansu didn't even smoke. This was a non-smoker's unusual form of lung cancer. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know the details, but he had lung cancer. And so at first, it looked like Hansu might be able to recover and rejoin the company, but things just got progressively worse. Test after test showed that he was getting worse. There were times when it seemed like he might be getting a little better, the medications might be helping, but then it would just resort to getting even worse. 15 months later, Hansu passed away, and Bhavin was all of a sudden forced to take over the reins of this company. The problem is, this company was still bleeding cash, like many other startups. They were not profitable. They had raised some money because of Hansu's connections and Hansu's meetings with investors. But Bhavin didn't really know any of these investors. He hadn't been doing the fundraising. He didn't know how to fundraise. He wasn't the charismatic person on the team. This wasn't even his dream. And so the question he had to face was, did he want to continue with this company? Did he want to lead it? He would have to be CEO. And he decided actually to lead this company for a couple of reasons. When I chatted with him earlier this year, he said one was he really wanted to just continue for his friend's legacy more than anything else. It wasn't about the money, and it wasn't about being powerful or rich or famous or anything. And secondly, he was really passionate about what they were doing, changing the way people learn. He had grown to love the startup world. I can't really go into the details of all the chemotherapies that Bhavin had to look at from sort of afar and watch his friend die over over a course of 15 months. And then the transition after that for the next year or two into actually being the real CEO. But it was very, very difficult for him. And there were lots of times when it didn't seem like the company was going to make it, he was going to make it. Today they're doing quite well. And they've raised a boatload of money. They make a lot of money. They're one of our top portfolio companies. But this is really grit. This is perseverance. And recently, about a year ago, they announced a Hansu Fellowship Fund for entrepreneurs. There were lots of dark hours that kind of led to all of this, but they hope that with this fellowship, Hansu's legacy can continue, and hopefully the company can be part of his legacy as well. And so those are two stories of just hundreds more in our portfolio of all the ups and downs you really go through in building this company. And I think what I want to leave you with is, if you're building a company today, whatever ups and downs you have, I guarantee you, you're not alone. Everybody else in the room probably has ups and downs. Probably half of the room has the same problems, the same exact problems that you have. And you should, one, know that you're not alone and take some solace in that. But also, two, like whatever it is, like startups are about embracing the challenge and just keep going, just keep persevering, because that's what it's really all about. And do this for whatever reason you decide to start the company in the first place. Like if it was for a passion, for a friend, or whatnot, keep that in mind as you're going through these challenges. Thank you.